Welcome to Factorio, the software equivalent of crack. Just going to give you a quick base tour. This whole save, the idea was to build a base of my own that could break 60 science packs per minute. I'm sorry. So one per second. I wanted to get one science pack per second or more. This is a Rail World default settings. It didn't change anything. Cool things about Rail World: the further out you go, the richer are the resources, and enemies don't keep growing into your base. Once you clear them out of a section, they're clear forever. So yeah, those are the settings. This is where I started. This is my initial base. This initial base had one goal: is to do the first three science, so red, green, and military, as quickly as possible, the minimum hassle. Um, I've used these like three blueprints that I've used everywhere. They're 30 per second science packs. They're 30 per minute science packs. And up here, just this little tiny pipeline that allowed me to get on rails as fast as possible. So get landfills so I can cross any rivers with the tracks. I got tracks and I got engines to make locomotives, and then green circuits for all the signs and everything. So the idea was not overbuild it, make it as cheap as possible, and the goal is to get rails. Right? Once I got that, then the work just got focused on the train station. This is by far the most dangerous train station I've done. I have 10, 15, 16 trains active. 8 of them are constantly moving. They never stop. It's fully load, fully unload, fully load, fully unload. And then there's 3 of them that are like slower. And then you have the military trains that just go around fucking shit up. And it's great. I love it. So I could have done better with the signaling in the trains. I really, really find this really hard. It helped a lot having two-way system, right? So definitely the best outcoming Rails grid. But initially I made it so that I could get started on the actual try. So after getting the first 3 science, my next goal was to get to rocket science so I could actually go for the base that was going to break the 60 per second, the 60 per minute. So this is the train station. The original train station only came to here, to the rock stuff. So this was the setup, and it fed this pipeline that goes north here. So we got our oil. Again, I'm continuing to make really awful oil. This is our basic refinery, so a lot of steel, a lot of iron, and a lot of coal. This is a green circuit factory, gears and pipes, engines, rails, red science, green science, military science again, same exact blueprints that I used down there, simplified. Red science factory, productivity modules, blue, and then productivity science and rocket science. These all fed into this labs, and that was great. That's how I got to all the sciences. And here's what it's the new job of this factory, which is simply making speed modules. I did think of like reanimating this factory and making it possible to launch rockets from this one, but the idea was that I was going to get surplus from the next one in one type of science. It didn't happen. So on the to-do list was to actually do the final rocket launching bit of this base so that this one would work at the same time as the other one, which I'm going to show you now. The quick detour. So this was the first one, got all the sciences done here, then start launching rockets, but I got everything up to what's blocked by the rocket launch. Here's my military trains. This is the supply train. It basically has a bunch of good stuff that gets destroyed and used. And, artillery shells, because we love those. And this is my train. It's how I usually walk around. Yeah, it's heavily armed. So moving on. After building that first pipeline where I unlocked all the sciences, I finally got robots. So I did this dedicated pipeline of just utility. Everything that I use in the base that I'm about to show comes from here. I barely handcrafted anything. So that was my goal, is to get this to a point where everything that I need is here and I can quickly grab it and run. And this is why I have all of these setups, and I have these two running things, reactor, so that's why I'm a good old speedy boy. So now if you run down here, this is the new intake, double intake, because the throughput is so high. If one of these dries out, it actually dries out the factory, so I needed to have one of them always running. So if I had bigger trains, this wouldn't be necessary, or if I could manage to make my trains faster, this also wouldn't be necessary. My trains are the fastest. Mistake to note here, I have too many machines for the belt, so these guys never end up doing anything. They're kind of just there for show. That kind of bottlenecks the rest of the factory. I guess this factory had a lot more potential had I've done the belt management better and not been lazy. So that's the refinery setup. I gotta show this one a little bit more detail. This is the best oil setup I've ever made. It doesn't look like, you know, someone's vomited over the screen, and it's super efficient. Refineries go in here, make this little pipeline, added the water to this pipeline. Heavy oil goes into making the lubricant that I need out right away. Then the rest gets converted to light oil, which then goes to rocket fuel production, which is this line below. All the surplus then goes into this, which converts it back to petroleum. That goes back into the top pipeline, back around, and down this way. Then all the petroleum gets fed into the sulfur factory and then into the plastic factory, making it a really contained oil setup that doesn't fuck up everything. And then outputting to the bus, there are only two pipes. It's our sulfuric acid and our lubricant. Great stuff. Again, limited by the belt setup. This is my circuit factory. So wire, green, red, blue circuits. There's a lot I could have done better. It's efficient-ish. Low density structure. We're already getting into the rocket pipeline, and then we have speed modules and rocket parts. And then this part down here is robot supplied, not belt supplied, because everything in here was 4 or less factories, and I didn't want to make a pipeline for each of these factories because it would have put the base way south over the train tracks. And it would be kind of a nightmare considering the train tracks are kind of the oldest stuff I have in the map, and I've kind of been wireframing the base around it, so I didn't want to do that. And I said, screw it. I think it'll be fine. Yeah, I think we are fine. The space works really well, and we do meet our goals of 60 average. If we look at the last minute, we're actually at close to 80 per second, which is great. This is really good. I never thought I would get this good of a result, especially it was my first attempt at doing like 1 per minute. But yeah, this base worked out really well. I'm just going to show you a couple of highlights, things that I want to share. Nuclear power came out sweet. Basically these three behemoths power gigantic amounts, and it was very cool to experiment with it the first time. It's tricky because you gotta refeed one type of uranium into itself to create the bright colored uranium as opposed to the dark colored uranium, which I'm running short, which people have told me is kind of ironic, but I know where it is. I'm spending a whole bunch in ammo, so not a bad thing, right? Eventually this will bottleneck and my supplies will be even again, so it was very cool to do nuclear for the first time. The other thing I wanted to show is kind of like the outpost setup that I have. It worked really well. It's self-sufficient, so a train comes here, drops all the necessary stuff using filter inserters to resupply and make sure the base is running. So new robots are always coming in. Most of them get destroyed. I do think that this is a really good setup to put things in because the train comes here, it's fully protected, feeds everything. These guys start shooting every time the shell range goes up. So I'm going to show you basically what it looks like. If you look down here, this one is nice and isolated. That's the range. But if I go into manual shot, the range is much bigger. So that's why the map looks like this, is that I've been making breathing room. Really wanted this to be an open base, and I think I did well, and it was well succeeded. Last thing is it's how you pick up nuclear. You just basically make sure the wagon brings some sulfuric acid liquids empty and fill much faster than ore. So you don't need to worry anything about in your train schedule. You just go, ore full or ore empty. Don't factor in the liquids as your, empty inventory, low inventory. Just use the ore that you're going on, and you almost guaranteed will always have sulfuric acid to spare. So that's one of the bases, and I just want to give a sneak preview of the actual current game that I'm playing. They introduced this new type of map, which is just a ribbon, so no up, no down, and that's the challenging part, right? Resources are scarce, and as you can see, I have the last bit of iron, a couple of bits of copper, some coal. Stone is completely out, and I need to go into ore to find it. But that's the challenge. So here's kind of like a sneak preview of what I'm thinking about this base. I've done a completely different approach where I do kind of like tiny pipelines. So I wanted to actually get to launch a rocket without going into the highly efficient optimized base setup like I did in the previous one. I kind of wanted to get this original pipeline going, so I decided to do things somewhat modularized. So first steel belt, first copper belt, first iron, first copper, first steel, stone, and copper also comes, coal also comes in here. Then I have, the basic 30 per second science that I've seen before. This is a belted mall kind of setup thing. So yeah, same thing as I saw earlier, but with belts. This is where blue science gets made, but again, into a pipeline, so little tiny oil setup. This is the second set of the mall. For right now, it doesn't do much, just roboports and robots, but eventually it'll provide lubricant for advanced belts and everything, all of those nice pieces. Here's a reinforcement of the ores. This current problem I'm dealing with, I gotta expand the bus. Everything is gonna be fatter in this bus, and I might not have enough room down. So yeah. Alright, thank you for watching.